To Israel now, where voters are gearing up for a major high-stakes election. They'll head to the polls tomorrow, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking re-election. Over the weekend, he vowed to annex Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank if he wins. The announcement is seen as a last-ditch effort to rally his right-wing base. Seth Doane takes a closer look.
At this Tel Aviv market in the lead up to the election, there was more on offer than usual. Politicians drowned out vegetable sellers. Here, supporters from Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party were pushing for votes.
About the election, we don't know what is going to happen. Till the last moment, we don't know what will go on.
I brought you a case.
In this tight race, Netanyahu has used state visits as campaign photo ops, and over the weekend tried to appeal to far-right voters. He vowed in a TV program to annex West Bank settlements, which would cement Israeli rule over land most of the world views as occupied territory belonging to Palestinians. At the market, this Netanyahu supporter said negotiating with Palestinians is pointless.
I want peace, verily, but it's not possible. Just oil and water.
In the campaign, Netanyahu has highlighted his relationship with President Trump, who recently recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights and moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing that contested city as Israel's capital.
Israel people love Trump because he loves my country.
So the same tactics are being used everywhere.
Yuval Adam, a web activist, said for Americans this campaign has familiar names and election strategies.
So these guys are just making up news about this man who's running against Netanyahu.
Exactly.
In his Tel Aviv hackerspace, which could be used as a Hollywood set, Adam told us how he'd uncovered a network of social media accounts supporting Netanyahu.
We're seeing that whenever there is a specific agenda that Bibi Netanyahu or the Likud is interested in pushing, you have this huge group of users that are, some of them are real, some of them are fake, and they're all pushing this agenda at the same time and trying to influence that onto the public opinion.
On the day his report was published, Netanyahu disputed it in a press conference.
Netanyahu came out and said, I thought this was all a joke. Here are some real people that are behind this. These are my supporters.
It was pretty shocking to us that the reaction was so fast. To us, it feels that we definitely hit something in terms of this network. We know for a fact that there are real people supporting him, but we know for also a fact that there are these hundreds of other accounts that are amplifying this content.
And Seth joins me now from Tel Aviv. So, Seth, Prime Minister Netanyahu, as you know, is facing a threatening challenge from a centrist candidate, Benny Gantz. Netanyahu is also embroiled in a corruption scandal. Does he have enough support to pull off this win tomorrow?
Well, we will see tomorrow when Israelis go to the polls. Vlad, it is very close. Polls have them really neck and neck. But this is a situation where you're not just voting for one person. You're, in fact, voting for a party. And then the party determines who fills these seats. So the question is not only who gets the most votes, but can that person form a government? And Israel's president has said that he will ask the party that gets the most votes to try to form that government first. The question is, if Gantz pulls ahead, will he be able to do it? This is one of the reasons we've seen Netanyahu really trying to get more and more votes, particularly from the far right in that announcement over the weekend.
And of that announcement over the weekend, Seth, look, you've been covering Israel for quite some time. I covered it too. You know, there's been this creeping annexation, some people are calling it, of settlements growing in the West Bank. And it's occurred slowly. So there are some people in Israel who, if they support a two-state solution, always thought that at some point it could be undone under future negotiations. But if you apply sovereignty, as Netanyahu is suggesting here, that would be irreversible.
Yes, absolutely. It would be a real step to the right. It's clearly there are about 500,000, around 500,000 people, Israelis, who live in these settlements. So that is a huge voting bloc as well. So you certainly see Netanyahu trying to appeal to those far right voters, trying to give them more of what they would like to see, which is an Israeli hold on that disputed territory. Of course, most countries in the world view that as land that belongs to Palestinians. And there's a lot of talk here right now about the timing, that Netanyahu is feeling emboldened following these announcements, these moves that the U.S. has made. Of course, you remember we covered quite a bit last year the moving of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And then just last month, we saw President Trump say that the U.S. is behind the Israeli sovereignty of the Golan Heights, which had been taken from Syria in the 1967 war. So those were really seen here in Israel as a green light for Netanyahu to try to move forward, to be more aggressive, feeling that the U.S. is unlikely to say much.
And Seth, as we saw in your piece, President Trump has played a significant role in this election. He has been getting some criticism over comments he made during a speech at the Republican Jewish Coalition in Las Vegas over the weekend. He appeared to misspeak about American Jews and their connection to Israel. I want to play a little bit of that sound.
I stood with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu. How is the race going, by the way? How is it? Who's going to win the race? Tell me. I don't know. Well, it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close. Two good people. But I stood with your Prime Minister at the White House to recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
So the American Jewish Committee released a statement slamming the way President Trump characterized the relationship of Americans with the state of Israel. But the larger question, I guess, Seth, is how is Benjamin Netanyahu's relationship with President Trump and the United States playing a role in this election? It's no secret that under the previous administration, they were many times at loggerheads, and some would even say that the two leaders, President Obama and Bibi Netanyahu, did not really get along.
That's right, Vlad. In fact, we were speaking with one analyst, a political analyst here, who said, listen, Netanyahu made it through. He survived 8 years with President Obama, and then he hit the lottery with President Trump. And we've certainly seen Netanyahu making quite a bit of that relationship with Trump. You played that bit from Las Vegas over the weekend. And interestingly, what was making bigger waves here in Israel from what he said was that Trump did not come out as he was expected to by many here and strongly endorse Netanyahu. He said, well, you know, there are two good candidates, and acknowledge that indeed it is a very close race. Certainly across all aspects, traveling around this country, we've spoken with a number of Israelis who really see this relationship between Netanyahu and President Trump as a very good thing. This is a country that says, look, we are a small country and we need strong allies in the region. Also, domestically, here you've seen in just recent days, Netanyahu go to Moscow to visit with President Putin, another strong ally. And he's tried to underline to supporters and to Israelis here, look, nobody has these relationships that I have, so please vote for me. We actually tracked down Benny Gantz, the leading contender, the opponent here, and we said, isn't this a huge disadvantage to you, this relationship that Netanyahu has with President Trump? And he said, listen, I think that countries are above people. If I become the next prime minister, I will have a relationship, Israel will have a relationship with America just like it does today. Vlad?
Yeah, and you know, there was more backlash to the president on that statement, Seth. Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, also tweeted, Mr. President, words matter. As with all elected officials, it's critical for you to avoid language that leads people to believe Jews aren't loyal Americans. Seth Doane reporting for us in Tel Aviv. Seth, we'll keep up with you. We'll find out exactly what happens over the next couple of days. Thanks so much.